Welcome to Around the Reel with your hosts, Aaron Carlson, Charles Lawson, and Samantha Hanna. Ah, shit. Here we go again.
This is how our show is.
Because we usually end up having a conversation in the middle of... We start a show in the middle of a conversation, just like we're starting right now in the middle of a conversation.
Absolutely.
Sam, how are you? Since you just... I mean, Sam just sat down and we're already talking. So
Yeah, we have been.
Yeah, we're talking about all fun things involving fan films, special effects, and what we're doing.
Okay.
Sam, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great. Hey, Sam, see who's on the show today?
I do.
Yeah. That's not a picture. That's not a frozen frame. He's there.
I see him.
That's actually...
Do you prefer Samantha or Sam? What's appropriate?
You can call me whatever you want.
See, okay.
Sam. No, I go by Sam.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
I'm going to tell you something, Robert, right away. When I told her I was actually talking with you for a minute, and I'm like, yeah, Robert LaSardo is considering being on our show. You know what she said? She's like, dude, he's hot. And I'm like, Sam, what about me, bro? You know what I mean? Like, Robert LaSardo's hot, but I know he's a badass. But damn, man, that's what she said.
Thank you for the compliment, Sam.
Yes.
Dude, I'd say you're hot too. Dude, I've been watching you in movies since I was a fucking teenager.
I was going to say, for over 30 years.
Yeah.
No, not to age you, my friend. I apologize. What a dick move, Chuck.
It's fine.
It's fine. I've come to terms with it, man.
Have you?
You know what's cool though, man? Bro? You look good. You look
the
same, man. You really do. I remember seeing you Hard to Kill is technically an 80s movie, but it came out in 90. I think it came out in 90.
Made in 89, came out in 90.
Yeah, but he had the best scenes in that. I mean, the scene he was in, he got his leg broke by Steven Seagal. You know what I mean? You cut your fucking heart out. I mean, that was the line. That's badass, you know? It's like, this is the best, dude. It's the best. Super excited to have you on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Around the Reel.
Welcome to Around the Reel.
Welcome to Around the Reel.
And today we have Robert LaSardo with us.
Yes, we do.
And this is a fucking
Super
honor.
exciting.
Super fucking honor. Brother, how are you?
I'm grateful and appreciate all of you taking the time to have a conversation with me.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well,
We're excited. We're excited to have a conversation with you.
I'd say we would say the same thing, right?
This is going to be one of those conversations where it's like he's going to school us in some knowledge of the heart, and we're just going to shut up and listen because he's going to calm our storm.
Well,
we are a storm. We do need calming.
We do. Well, we're all. And
I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. I mean, that's sometimes exactly what we need.
It is. But we're all making movies and doing some stuff. But before the show, Robert had mentioned something about us making the movie,
right?
And he said, and you guys are all still friends and you're still getting along.
Yeah, he pays me a lot of money to hang out with him.
He'd be talking shit, Rob.
He doesn't pay me anything. He just doesn't pay me.
He just offers you an inch at a time.
He offers me what?
An inch at a time.
Oh, I thought you were...
It doesn't take very long to get there. Let me put it that way. Robert.
Wow.
It's true.
The
Right?
subtext of it all.
I really hope you've listened to a couple shows.
Yeah, I'm half white, Robert. So it's,
and
he's all asshole. But anyway,
he's white below the belt.
I thought that was more of an ashy gray.
Ashy.
I mean, he gets ashy.
Dude, I don't have an ashy dick. That's messed up.
I've seen your
the
elbows,
one part
man.
of me that's not ashy.
I've seen your elbows. I just figure it just kind of moves around.
That's messed up.
Oh.
Anyway, so Robert, okay, so what did you mean by that when you asked us that question when the show started, that we're still friends?
It's probably just my own projection.
Yeah, I can understand that, but is this industry, I guess, with the amount of experience you've had, I mean, you've been making movies forever, dude. Have you seen some shit? Have you seen some shit that just kind of done some things? And you don't have to go into specifics, just, where it gets fucking weird.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Okay. All right. I get it.
And I mean, humor is key, as I'm learning from watching all of you interact, but you definitely have humor down now. I think it's crucial to stay sane. And
it is.
Clearly, you guys are in the college course of that. You guys, could teach classes on that. I can tell already. I think this is probably the one variable that in my skill set is probably the weakest link in the chain. And, maybe to my own benefit in terms of manifestations of character that I've been asked to conjure, So, but I've also noticed behind the scenes that what I had originally imagined wasn't the case in terms of the persona of people that I adored and grew up watching, and that when I met some of them, I was shocked because, and maybe, like I said, it's my own projection, because it's not reasonable to place that kind of expectation on people when they're living in the frame of a fiction. But I've also, the duality is, or the flip side of the coin, the more positive note, is that I've been very fortunate to meet people that have changed the way I perceive this guy in relationship to the mirror, the work, creativity, and what some people would call, I guess, a healthy ego, although I'm not a fan of the ego, but just this a sense of purpose, and that you deserve to be here, Robert. You deserve. So I've met some amazing artists who were afforded the curse or blessing of being, legendary celebrities, that just told me right to my face, or whispered it softly in my ear, man, it's going to be okay. Just don't go crazy. And I needed to hear some of the positive reinforcement that I wasn't getting from most of my earlier life. So in that sense, I've witnessed and had the good fortune to meet people on both sides of the pole, negative and the positive. So I could look back at this experience and learn from it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, in our experience here, it's a little bit of a different story, though, because it's not like we've been working together for 5 years. Aaron and I have been best friends for 30 years.
Yeah.
And we grew up together. And I don't say we grew up together. I don't mean like, we were playing stickball in the streets. We went through first marriages together. We went through having our first kids, together, raising kids and all that stuff. We have adult children. I mean, we have been brothers for 30 years because of what we've experienced in life together. Mm-hmm. In separate households with other people. Stop looking at me sideways, Sam. I see your look coming through the screen.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But no, that's one of those things for us as far as that, because I mean, Aaron's been chasing a dream of making movies for 20 years, and I've been helping wherever I can. However, right now, I'm just now finally getting into directing, and without him, I wouldn't be doing the shit I'm doing. So.
Yeah, and that's the secret sauce. I think that we don't ever talk about. We inspire each other. All of us do. Sam included. Sam and I have been together for 16, almost 17 years now, Sam. Jesus Christ.
Carry the 2 minus the negatives.
Man, and she jumped in when we were making our first movie, big movie.
Putting up with your shit for a long time. Jeez.
She has. And she had no desire to do this stuff,
No.
And she jumped right in, Robert, and has been a fucking soldier.
Well,
and
you can't beat them, join them.
You know what I mean? And here's the thing, man.
Yeah, I like that saying.
But here's the cool thing. Both of these guys have done amazing work. Like Chuck, I watched him direct last night for the first time. This last weekend. Unbelievable how good he did. And Sam made her own documentary, directed a full feature documentary, and it's just releasing soon on Tubi TV, and
that's Tubi TV,
and it's getting hit on more platforms right now. And it's amazing about the giant Pacific octopus. These guys have grown as artists, and it's fucking it's beautiful as fuck. I love it, and I feel like, whew, thank God, because I was hoping it would work. That I could show them that if I see their gifts in them. I mean, because we all have a gift, just like Coach Rick says. We all have a gift to give. You guys have gifts to give. Robert, you've been giving your gift for a long time, brother.
Quit talking about his age, man. That's rude.
No. I appreciate it. I appreciate it because my man has been in everything. I mean, he's so recognizable. Everybody knows you. You know, they see your face, they know who you are. I don't care if you're playing a little bit part in the movie or if you had a full, you know, lead part. You have been a part of filmmaking. And that's why I was so excited to have you on the show, because as soon as I was like, fuck, we get him on here, we can, Jesus, what do I talk about? There's so much. I don't even know, but it's very cool to have your persona come out on the show right now, like the real Robert. You know, that I like this. I love this about you, because I don't know where to go with this interview. I'm looking at him right now and I'm like, okay, so
you're so calm and mellow.
And he's chill, but at the same time, I know you got a lot to say. So why don't we start by, you've been an actor for a long time. You're getting ready to, and you have been making a new film, right?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and tell us what that film is and some stuff about it and what you're doing.
The film is called, the title of the film was American Trash. I think one of the inspirations to embrace the task of making it, and, you know, realizing I had to wear all these hats if I was going to get it done. I was sitting in my car one day on the Pacific Coast Highway in Southern California, looking out at the ocean. And there was this family leaving the beach. And I remember looking out at the water and just was very calm and just felt, you know, a state of equanimity that I needed. And that's generally why I go to the beach, to find that, because I have to get away from Inland Empire, away from the Matrix. Otherwise, nothing makes sense, you know, and at least from the subjective position that I'm in. So I was just sitting there enjoying that, and I've watched this family just leave the beach, and, you know, just observation of, you know, human behavior. But then I noticed something. I noticed that they were wiping their feet off, getting the sand off of their feet, and they were very meticulous about it. And they were leaning against this very expensive kind of vehicle. I don't know what it was called. One of those like vehicles that carry families. I guess isn't that called a Suburban or something? I don't
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
An
So
SUV.
an SUV, there it is, SUV. And I remember looking at the father, and he caught my eye. He saw that I was looking at him, and I wasn't trying to be confrontational. I was just fascinated with the behavior and the fact that they were a family, and it was just part of this landscape of beauty that I was observing, until I noticed something, which is that they were throwing the tissues and their garbage onto the ground and not taking it with them.
Wow.
And it bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what would happen if someone, or let's just say some neo-hippie type, say a young woman with a strong conviction for Mother Earth and a belief system that takes us back to the 1960s in terms of love for Mother Earth, the environment.
Child.
Yeah, Flower Child, which suddenly appeared before them and asked them politely to pick up their trash. What would happen? And that's the genesis of my story. That's what motivated me to start writing it.
Wow.
I started there.
Wow.
Okay. Now I know where your movie's going. Wow, that's dope.
That's incredibly interesting.
So is this your first time writing something like this in your career?
Something like this particular subject matter, yes.
Okay. All right. So you have this moment and you come up with this idea, and then you go and you sit down and you're working this out. You've been an actor all these years in film, and then you go, fuck, I'm gonna make something. So what's your next step? What do you do? What does Robert LaSardo do? I know what indie filmmakers do.
We scramble.
But which is what you are probably right now, Robert. You don't have the studio backing you. So what was your steps? How did you get this thing rolling?
I'm gonna try to borrow some humor from you guys.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, take all of it.
I took a look at my bank account and considered how much money I had, and if I could pull it off.
There you go.
And the creative side of me said, "Rock on, hey, let's do this. Leap of faith." The logical part of my mind, my consciousness was like, you are insane. You're crazy.
Yeah, well, us creatives, we are a little insane.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just pop out the wallet and rip open the credit cards and be like, pick a card, any card. Only half of them will work, so pick wisely.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Right? Like, I remember a film that James Toback directed. I forget what the name of it was. It was The Gambler with James Caan, the original Gambler.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where James Caan's character, who's actually an English teacher, I think he's an English teacher or a history teacher, but he's explaining to this athlete how every artist and athlete knows, and gambler knows, that 2 + 2 = 5. Conventional mind thinking says no, 2 + 2 = 4. Because it deals with this kind of rationale, conventional matrix structure that children are taught very early on in their lives that to some extent limit them, and utilizing the imagination to open up doors that seem impossible, to move through walls and affect their lives in ways that was never conceivable prior to that leap of faith. Thus the saying, faith can move mountains. So I remember this film, and I remember James Caan saying to this athlete that, what distance from the rim, what's your furthest, what's the furthest distance from the rim where you can make the shot? And he told him the amount of distance. He said, okay, have you ever considered stepping back another 10 feet to make the jump shot? He goes, yeah. He goes, what's the likelihood of you getting it in? He says, it's unlikely, right? But it's possible that it'll go in, right? He goes, yeah, right. Just like it's possible that the gambler who's betting everything on, putting it all on the line, his entire life on that one number, will win. It's unlikely that it'll happen, but it's possible.
Yeah.
So every gambler knows, and every athlete knows, that the probability in terms of logic and physics suggests that it's not probable, but it is in fact possible. So when people say to me, Robert, what's the trick? What's the key to success? I say, well, I don't know necessarily. I've had many men and women in my life who whispered in my ear various slogans and ideologies, but I've come away with a couple of things, which is that a man told me a story once, which is similar to what I just said. He said, it's like this. You take everything that you own, everything, and I think all of you can relate to this based on your comments to me earlier, is that you take everything you own, all the conventional structures of safety, and you put them up for sale. You put them on the line. You dismantle and deconstruct that belief system and notion of security, and you kind of throw yourself off a cliff, basically, figuratively, and take a leap of faith. And that practice is what develops tremendous courage. And then you take and then he also said to me, my friend, he said, tell people who ask you this question, just take everything you own, your house, your security, your money, your car, your wife, your kid, all of it, sell it, take that money, go to Las Vegas and bet it on the same number for the rest of your life. That was his answer. And I thought, I understand what that means.
I do too.
So, yeah.
I think that there is not many people can understand that, I think, or at least feel it inside, but I know exactly what you mean. And that's the steps that I've been taking for a while. And it sucks because you look like a fucking loser sometimes because you fail, shit doesn't work, or things that you try to do aren't resonating and happening the way you hope they would, or efficiently as they would, right? So you get stuck sometimes, like that starving artist thing where you're sitting there and you believe, you're taking that leap, you're jumping into something that you know that you can do, and you believe it so much, Robert. You know what I mean? And yet life doesn't fuck around. It could kick you in the fucking head and it doesn't give a shit, and you got to take it, and you don't know what's going to happen. But it's just like Rocky. You just got to keep getting back up, and you got to keep fucking trying, and you got to keep going. If you quit and stop trying to follow whatever that is, whether it's your dream or your passion or a goal, If you don't continue on to it, you'll never know what the outcome would be. And that's that 2 + 2 = 5. It's that little missing piece. That's what it is.
Yeah, there's
that
no
courage.
there's no ministry of logic when it comes to that approach to life. It doesn't fall into the patterning of conventional rational thinking.
It
It's
doesn't.
considered irrational.
You're
No.
absolutely
And
right,
the majority
Robert.
of people on this planet do not understand it.
No, and they
don't
think
get
you're
it.
nuts. They
They
think
do.
you're nuts, and they're probably right, because I think we are nuts. We're insane.
Yeah, well, there's
We're
a bit of
absolutely out of our
there's a bit of
minds.
insanity, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I know that I'm the nerdy numbers guy amongst the group here. I'm the
You're
nerdy
that
guy.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So
So
but
you're going to negotiate the distribution deal. For the
Yeah,
film, then.
that's the guy. Yeah, he's our producer. That's the guy.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I'll tell all you nerdy people out there: put down the paper and the pencil. Do not think of things as far as them being on a piece of paper. Look at everything in 3 dimensions. So that way you'll see that when you bring something, you bring it together. Whatever it's connected to before it came to you has something already on it. That's why it's growing. That's why it's more than what it is. Don't look at it as 1 and 1 is 2. Everything has more stuff attached to it.
It does.
I became friends with Aaron. I didn't know he came with 87 children.
I don't have that many kids.
Are you sure?
Give me a break, Robert. He's lying.
But still,
I have some kids.
I
but
have
I'm
one
never-
friend who comes with all these fractions. All those fractions meet 87 more bodies. Come on, Aaron. You've had these conversations before. You go in the bathroom for 5 minutes and a kid walks out.
Yeah, I
behind
did.
you.
Yeah, I jerk off. There's a kid there in the morning. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Pretty much.
he's fertile. We're just
It's an
saying he's
interesting
fertile.
point that you
Or
make,
he's
Chuck.
potent.
That point speaks to me because you asked me, or someone asked me early on, Aaron, you asked me early on about I would call it maybe potential peril of embracing a production and how relationships can be tested, right?
Correct. Yes.
I was indicating that, or kind of insinuating that, and I've witnessed, because you asked me, you've seen some stuff. I have. What I've seen is that, especially in the independent realm, and I'm seeing, I have to say this with respect to you and to everybody who's listening, is that I clearly see it through my own perception. So my perception could be clearly aberrated, or it could be aberrated and distorted. I'm looking through morose glasses, made by the company called Morose. I don't know if what I'm seeing is accurate, but I do know in terms of the law, what I've seen is producers that worked together in concert years ago, that were friends and allies and sang the praises of whatever particular idol that they had built in relationship to their film, faith, etc. I saw that kingdom collapse right before my eyes, and the people that claimed to love one another were literally at each other's throats or locked in some litigation, and the film was either put in stasis and post-production purgatory for forever, or somebody got sued for a ridiculous amount of money, and relationships ended and never and it was irreparable. There was no opportunities to repair them. So I try not to sound pessimistic or dark. I've just seen a lot of stuff happen, and what I've also noticed, and independent of just taking on the laborious, all-encompassing task of producing, directing, and writing, and all the stuff that you guys are doing, that I'm just recently become a student of myself, is that independent of that, just being a performer, circus clown, actor, give it a name, whatever. I don't like labels. So just being a creative entity in of itself in the marketplace, that I feel at times can save lives in terms of it offering opportunity after you've suffered the indignity of what's required, or suffered the requirements of the task over and over again. They suddenly reward you with some money and an opportunity to share the creativity in the construct that they built for you, so that you can shine, I guess, if that's the goal, so that the ego can feel a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of accomplishment. I understand that aspect of things. I've had to overcome that for myself's sake and my sanity's sake, because after a while it didn't work anymore. There was nothing I could do that would change my state of consciousness in terms of feeling important enough to overcome my humanness and the human frailty that I had to deal with on a daily basis. So when someone would approach me in the street and say, "Hey, you're that guy on that show, man. Isn't it great?" I would go, "Yeah." And I would, just out of respect, not to insult the person, invent a disposition that was auspicious so that they would feel good about it, knowing that I still had to deal with this guy. And
Yeah.
I did not somehow suddenly have supernatural powers or was anointed to walk above the ground now. None of the gravity fields of life that challenge all of us had changed. And that was quite the shock and the wake-up call. It's like, I think it was his name, George Segal, the actor that was in the movie about gambling. I forget the title of the film.
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about in the film, him and Elliot Gould are these, I guess, degenerative gamblers, and they're obsessed with gambling. They're addicted to it. And at the end of the film, Siegel's character tells the guy, there's no great feeling, because he wins this amazing sum of money at the end of the film. And what's so disconcerting about that conclusion is that you look at his face and his disposition doesn't change much. And the guy, I think someone asked him, "What's wrong? You won all this money." And he says to the guy, "There's no great feeling. It doesn't change anything." So whatever the root cause, whatever the dilemma is, I think the belief amongst a lot of aspiring artists who want to achieve some station in the realm, which I understand, I get it, I'm not knocking it. Be careful though, because it's not necessarily going to liberate you in the way that you think. It'll get you some money so you don't have to worry about the bill collectors. It may even get you a lot of dates and a lot of respect from people who admire those things. But you have to be careful with that.
Well said, man. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, there's the thing that I always worry about with success, and that's why I fear it so much with the three of us and what we're doing. Because there's a certain level of, I think, genuine. You get less genuine out of people the more that you have.
Yeah.
Or the bigger you are, or whatever, the more your people know your name. I feel like people aren't as genuine then. So you miss out on that. But it's also hard when you get the genuine out of people because the genuine out of people is not always good and it's not always nice. But so it's a catch-22 really if you think about it, because you're giving up certain things for other certain things, and is it worth it?
I started out naive. I started out extremely naive, like a lot of people, and I had to change, not because I wanted to be diabolical or flip the moral compass around. I changed simply to survive, to save my mind, so that I could continue the journey and serve as many combat tours in the realm of show as necessary, because I knew nothing else. I didn't know how to do anything else, and because I felt so ill-fitted in the world, I would have probably ended up dead or in jail.
Yeah.
Or somebody would have killed me. So I realized that it was a blessing, but at the same time, it had to be managed a certain way after a while, because being naive wasn't working. It started to fail me tremendously, and I had to learn quickly to realize that when the movie's being made and everybody's being nice to one another, or seemingly nice on set, and people are giving you their phone numbers, and everybody's so excited to be making the film, with good reason, because it is an auspicious event to be creating and be a part of something. It feels euphoric. Yep. It's euphoric, man. It's sublime. It's like nirvana, right? So you're in the state of nirvana with all these other people, and you're comparing notes about your lives, you're doing the same, you're working with people you never dreamed to be working with. But what I noticed something, though, over the years, was that as soon as the film started to come to an end and dismantle itself and deconstruct itself and go into post-production, so did the relationships, a lot of them. People stopped calling, they would disappear. And it hurt me this is the naive part of me, I guess,
got you.
or
Yeah.
Oh
that
God, is that
felt
not me?
hurt.
Yeah,
That
that's
is-
totally you. That's why she doesn't want to
me.
make movies anymore.
That's
Yeah.
me.
She's like, I don't want to
It's
be
so
on your
mean.
guys'
Hurt me.
sets.
Yeah, it hurts. Yeah.
All my new friends always leave.
Yeah. And I don't have
And
any
so-
friends, so it's really sad.
So there was a paradigm shift that occurred, guys, and that was necessary so that I would not personalize it so much.
Yeah.
And I embraced a way of living for a while that I'm not proud of, and to this day still have those tendencies to be rather crass and abrupt and cruel. I don't think I'm a cruel person, but I've done cruel things, or I've built a wall of protection at times because I've become paranoid.
I
Charles
get it.
Bukowski, the famous American writer, said he always considered the paranoid the man with all the facts. You can have the facts and have the information, but then, like you guys continue to demonstrate, a sense of humor despite the facts. So that's what I realized would be the third stage of my development, that I would have to, grow a thicker skin to survive, which I did, and then employ a sense of humor, which I'm still working on, so that I could see how ridiculous it all is,
Yeah.
But
it is.
not-
Yeah.
negate the creativity. The creativity always would come first. The relationship dynamics, this idea of fame and big and small, and all this numerical banker mentality had nothing to do with being a creative soul.
Right.
Nothing. The marketplace packages it. They sell it to the masses for mass consumption so that people can be entertained and they can disappear temporarily into an alternate universe and forget about their lives. And it's beautiful. It's fine. It's necessary. Why not?
There's a lot we got to just dissect this one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's
Yeah,
a
I'm
lot.
with you
Okay.
on
I'm glad you were
that.
taking
Robert,
notes. I
you're-
forgot
you're-
my notepad because I was
No, you're
watching
fine.
one of his shorts before we started the show
Yeah,
and
you're
crying
fine.
like a little girl.
Right.
So I'm glad you were taking
I
notes,
know which
please.
one.
I'm gonna start with the human aspect of this with you, Robert. Like that's the one thing I think most people out there wouldn't understand, even including myself. Like we can get so enamored by people that we've grown up with or watched in film or TV or whatever, and like you said earlier in the show, you had the same. You were just as naive. You went in and you saw these people that you admired, and you start working with them and you're like, fuck, some of these guys are fucking dicks. This is bullshit. That's what I got from you. And it bursts your bubble. And I could say the same thing with you, Robert. I see you, and I've seen you in all these movies. I'm like, dude, Robert's the man. He's badass. And then you actually talk to you, and you're like, fuck, my man's been through some shit. You've been through some shit, and you've got to find your humanity. You got to keep who you are intact during this. And for me, I see you fighting Steven Seagal, and I'm thinking to myself, he was
Dude
having a
is
blast.
unstoppable. He's
Yeah, you know what I
gangster,
mean?
yeah.
But at the same time, there's a real human there.
Right.
There's a man. There's a man. And I think that's where we get lost in this fictional world of, the filmmaking industry. We can't help that. And it's weird. It's weird. And then we could talk about the money stuff, because you've seen these relationships happen and you've seen these people be friends for so long. And soon as money gets involved, it's fucked.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and here's the kicker, Robert. Where we're at as a production company, we haven't got those dollar bills yet,
No.
brother. We haven't faced that demon
But
yet.
we've had the conversations, and
We
that's
have.
I think is important.
And we've been rolling the pennies. So, we're still got something coming.
We're getting pennies rolled, bro.
yeah. Aaron hates pennies though.
I can't roll them. I can't. No.
Yeah, I throw them. I admit I throw them away sometimes.
Aaron had a bad.
My
He used
mom.
to get punished by rolling pennies.
Yeah, if I got in trouble, my mom.
Sorry, you were
my-
traumatized.
Yeah, dude, it fucked me up. Here, dude, a jar of pennies, and I'd be in trouble, and my mom would tell me to fucking roll pennies fucking all day, and I'd be sitting there rolling them on the fucking floor all day with no TV. I was pissed.
It's funny but not funny.
It was fucked up. And then when I worked at the bank, I have to roll fucking coins, and I was mad every day I was at work. I'm just like, fuck this. I quit. I can't do this.
I can't do it.
No, and he
I
did
was so
quit
mad.
too. Like,
Yeah, I was so
he's
mad.
not kidding.
Yeah,
So-
I was traumatized by fucking rolling coins.
So let me ask you this: if somebody came up to you and gave you a jar of coins, not pennies, a jar of coins, so
Yeah.
there's all kinds of shit.
I can
in
do
there.
quarters. I'm fine
But
with
no,
quarters.
but somebody gives you an entire jar of coins. Would you take the time to roll it yourself to get every value
No.
out of
No,
it,
no,
or
I
would you
go-
take that shit to
Coinstar.
Coinstar,
Coinstar.
and eat 25%?
Coinstar in a heartbeat.
Not rolling.
Yep, I go to
So,
Safeway at Coinstar. I don't give
That
a
is straight
shit.
punishment for him.
No, I'll pay 10 cents on the dollar. I don't give a fuck. I'm not rolling them. Not gonna do
Or
it.
I'll just roll him because I don't give a shit.
so
no one
hard.
punished me,
It's-
so I'm okay.
For me, it's sad that something like that for Aaron was so traumatic because doing something like that with my hands, it's like playing with a Rubik's cube.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those things. It zens you out.
Soothing for you.
Yeah, it zens you
Soothing.
out. It's just like, okay, fine, I got all this.
Not
things
me.
Separate it out. Separate
Dude,
it
I
out.
start sweating. I get all tense in my shoulders and shit. I
You're
just
supposed to be rolling with your hands,
grinding
not
my
your-
teeth.
Yeah,
Brutal.
yeah.
But I want to get back
Aaron
to
has
some.
issues.
Yeah, he does have issues.
Sorry,
Actually,
yeah.
that is true.
It's fine. All right.
But
Go
Hey,
ahead.
I
you
wanna-
you're in good company, brother. You're not alone.
Thank you.
That
brother.
is-
I appreciate
that
you.
is
Thank you
true.
so much. I appreciate it. I want to get back to the walls too, but go ahead, Sam.
No, I just wanted to say that there's, I think, something important that you kind of hit on is that being a creative person can sometimes be lonely. It can be lonely. Whereas people, you feel like no one really understands you, or you feel alone in your thoughts and the way you think, and that it's sometimes hard to have relationships in that when you're a creative person, or to make relationships work, or to have someone understand you in your creative world, because the creative world can be a different world than everyone else lives in. And so that's what I find for myself, is that I am misunderstood quite a bit, and that if I get lost in a creative world for a while and then I come out into the public and I try to talk to people, it doesn't always work out so well. And then I get like insecure, and I'm like, I feel like, oh gosh, what am I doing wrong, or what
You
is
feel
it to
stupid.
me, or I feel stupid. Yeah.
Yep.
And I do. And another thing that you touched on was taking things personally, which I do a lot. But when you're an emotional person and you're a sensitive person, that's what happens. So I've been learning, like you said, I've been learning how to try not to take things personally. But I'm so emotional and I'm so sensitive that I take everything personal. So yeah, those.
Let me ask you something, Sam. When that happens, in terms of reaction, how does it manifest?
Like butterflies. No, I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry, Sarah,
no.
go ahead.
I'm hard on myself. That's how it does.
So
I always beat myself up.
you turn inward. It
I
doesn't
do.
She
project
internalizes
outward.
everything.
I internalize it
Yeah.
and
For a
yeah.
short period.
Yep.
She internalizes. I mean,
No,
we're family.
Yeah,
You
we
are.
are.
We are family.
Go ahead,
So
speak for
she
me,
will
yeah, please.
internalize it for a
Yeah.
short period of time until she gets to the point where she can't take anymore, and then she turns it outward and gives it to everyone else too.
It takes longer though.
It does
I-
take.
I-
It
See, I
takes
never
long
would've-
for her to turn it outward.
Chuck, I understand that aspect of things because I didn't realize I was even doing that till it was brought to my
I
attention.
was just gonna say I didn't even know I
Yeah.
did that.
You do, Sam, but here's the kicker. Sam has patience. She can internalize something and hold it way longer than most people. Like, I can internalize it, but I'm like a fucking
You got
filter.
like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm like a straw. It goes as soon as it hits me, it's right out. I just get rid of it. Like, it goes, it's out.
It's like with
but-
a pressure washer because it comes in as water and goes out as like giant
Fire.
spray.
It's like a fucking gasoline.
It's a
fucking
train
fire.
wreck.
Yeah, but I mean,
So basically, you guys all balance each other out.
Yeah,
That's correct.
That's exactly what we
I'm,
do.
and I'm the giant fucking sponge.
SpongeBob.
Sponge Chuck.
You know, my
Square ass.
fantasy also, one of the motivations to making American Trash was that I had always wanted that, and this is where I become a fantasist too, like you, Sam. I'm a fantasist, and that I had always hoped to build a community. As I remember as a teenager going to a specialized school for acting and training, there was a sense of camaraderie. And back in the 70s, you know, the interpersonal dynamic in relationships were much more in your face because the AI hadn't showed up yet. There weren't cell phones or any of that. So you really had to deal with people face to face and get to know them and call them on the phone and spend time with them. in school and theater workshops, there was a sense of belonging and a sense of family that I didn't have at home. And I think I was revisiting a fantasy maybe, or the memory of that, or moments where that occurred in school many years ago when I was a young man. And I had hoped that writing the story that involved a group of people coming together to deal with a common loss and a circumstantial event, which is their city is coming apart through violence, environmental ruin, etc., that common denominator would bring them closer together. So I wrote the story with that in mind as well, in the hopes that too, that the actors and actresses that I've chosen, we would develop a family. And this is where I get in trouble again by projecting onto people when they're just simply there to do a job.
Sometimes,
and if relationships form, they form in the true sense. But if you think anybody would know this after decades of this Pinocchio routine of pretending or invoking things and making them seem real to the point where you think they are real, you have to press a button and say, wait a minute, wake up from the dream. I think the difficulty at times has been with me is to process out and not knowing how to shut it off. And this can be detrimental when you're playing characters that are teaching lessons in barbarism within the story. So I wanted to tell a story that had elements of that for the sake of formula, so people would watch it because they identify this guy a certain way and they want to see, but maybe the monster come to bear, but maybe they want to see it come to bear with something else, like a beautiful woman, or this idea of Beauty and the Beast, to see a paradox in front of them that's interesting to look at because they've seen all the other stuff. So I wanted to combine all the elements that I knew and introduce other elements and emancipate the creative spirit in a way. And I thought by putting the right people together, I would have that catharsis. And I did within the fiction.
Yes.
And then I had to wake up. The closest aspect of that I feel that's still real is with my editor, Anthony Espina, because he understands the film on a spiritual level and an emotional level, maybe more than I do, because he's done such incredible editorial work on this film.
And he's an emotional guy.
Very much so.
And he's been a great teacher in terms of me having to realize how I affect other human beings and my passion or my OCD tendencies or the paranoia that I spoke to all of you about earlier can sometimes hurt other people. And it's not their fault that I have been ill-used or had bad experiences. They don't deserve it. And so I've had to apologize to quite a few people in the making of this movie.
I get that.
I do too.
Aaron has a tendency to see. I always try to go into every relationship treating someone with a clean slate, like I've never been hurt, nothing's ever happened to me bad. That's how I like to treat people, always, and I try to live by that always. And Aaron, on the other hand, is completely opposite, and he will treat people like you said, like you do, like sometimes according to someone else's bad behavior or someone else's hurtful things that they've done to him or whatever. And that's been a learning process for us, and just in our relationship, is that trying to have to just balance that. I guess it's a good thing that we balance each other.
No, it's true. It's totally true. And that's the fun part. Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's the whole wall aspect. Robert, you made a comment about that. I've known Aaron forever, and it's like everybody's always expected to be able to figure out a way to take down your walls,
right?
So that way they can get to see the real you. Fuck getting down somebody's walls. If they have them up, they have them up for a reason. Build a fucking door, so at least you can open up and talk to them once in a while.
You're right.
Stop trying to tear down somebody's walls. They have huge walls for a reason. Aaron's walls come down a little bit. Something bad happens. He builds it twice as high.
And it's all circumstantial. You know, what I've learned over the years, Robert, is that, at one point in my life, I didn't trust nobody. Nobody. You know what I mean? And in time, I realized how shitty that was because no one deserved it, like you said. To feel so... I don't even know what word could describe it. However they felt. I don't know how they felt. But when it was pointed out to me how I treated somebody, I felt like shit. But at the same time, I was still defending why I did what I did, or said what I said, or acted how I acted. In time, I've learned that, having your glass empty when you meet somebody isn't necessarily the right way to go. Half full is better. And I go in half full now. If I don't know you, I'll go in half full. I can totally be nice. I can totally be considerate. I can understand the chit-chat and the small talk, all that stuff that one time in my life I'd look at and go, oh my God, why are they just trying to suck up to me and strike conversation? It's like, I don't know you. Why are you fucking... I mean, that's how I felt. But in time, I learned how fucking rude that was, because how do you build a network? How do you build relationships? You got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? And you got to give it a chance. Like you said, there's that 2 + 2 = 4. You take a leap of faith. Well, that leap of faith is with people too.
Yeah.
And I never took it for a long time. And I'm doing it now. And I feel better about it, And if that fucker ends up being an asshole, it's real easy for me to go, I don't need to talk to that person ever again. I'm good. But you know what? You know how many relationships have grown because I've done that now? And they filled up the glass like right away. And I'm like, holy shit, wow, it does work. Sam was right. And I hate saying that, but Sam, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, I'm partially right. I don't have the gift that you have to clip somebody and cut it off and not be hurt, not be upset.
Yeah.
That those relationships bother me when they're not doing well, or they're even lost.
Well,
I don't like that. I don't like losing people, whether it's to death or a fight or whatever. I don't like losing people, and I lose people a lot. Right. So loss is something that I really have had to learn how to go through. And like Aaron said, I deal with death very well.
Yes,
but I
you
don't
do.
But I don't deal with loss when someone's still alive.
No, you don't. And
I
that's
do not
the thing.
deal with that at all.
Yeah, I the biggest walls I have is because of loss, and you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't stand losing people. It sucks, especially those that I truly love and care about. That shit fucked me up really bad. I mean, I lost my mom when I was fucking in my 30s, but she was murdered, and
Sorry.
No, it's all good, brother. And my dad died when I was 15 from cancer. So it's like, fuck, I literally didn't know how to deal with that stuff. So what I did was found a way to just, I guess that's the way it is. And you just kind of keep moving. And had no idea it caused anger, it caused pain, it caused, no trust in
Sabotage,
others. Yeah,
self-sabotage.
Totally. Had no idea. Had no clue. Because I used humor all the time. All the time.
He called it humor. We called it sarcasm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I thought it was funny.
I don't know. I mean,
but that's how I did it. But I didn't know my humor, and the way I was dealing with things was causing other people pain. I'm like, why are you such a pussy? How come you can't take that?
You're still like that. Don't
I am, but
like
it's different. It's more like Johnny and Cobra Kai. It's just silly. That's what I'm doing. But it's rough. I mean, we're people, man. We can't.
Yeah.
We don't know.
There's no handbook. It doesn't. There's nothing that tells you how to do shit and how not to do shit. And even like, what's an answer? Going to a psychologist? Well, half the time you go to those and they don't even know what they're talking about. So
it's 50-50 rolling the dice.
It's hard. You have to live and learn. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. And I think internalizing stuff is fun. I mean, if it, like Robert, like you said, you had to
internalizing stuff is not fun.
Well, no, but if you internalize things and you're able to work it out in your head, like Robert did, and then he ends up saying, I have to apologize to these people. He figured it out on his own. Yeah, you made some mistakes, but at the same time, there's still time to fix things, to make it right. Do you know what I'm saying, Robert?
The thing that's hard to accept
The
thing that's hard to accept is other people, and you can't change them, and you can't control them, and so that's what you have to learn how to deal with.
Correct.
It's not like yourself, it's other people.
Yeah.
The flip side to internalizing thing is also the fact that, Robert, let me ask you a personal question. How many hours of sleep do you get per night?
It varies. I go through phases. Okay, so there's two answers to that question.
Okay. That's what I was figuring.
When I'm working and there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure, I don't know, 4 hours, 5.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay. When I'm not working and I'm in a circumstance that's I'm not in Los Angeles, I'm somewhere else, and there's nothing for me to do except meditate or just be still, I can sleep 8 hours.
Okay.
Right on.
So now think about that. So the active brain goes for about 8 to 10 hours in a day, as far as like if you're working, if you're being creative, whatever you're doing. So if you're somebody like Robert, like myself, like Aaron, and even like Sam, who fits the same type of criteria as being creative type people, you are either awake for 18 to 20 hours a day, which leaves all those hours for you to internalize and think about all these things, because you have more arguments inside your head than you have with the people that you are worried about having an argument with.
Okay.
Because you are internalizing what that conversation is going to be like. But when you find bliss, or when you find a break, or when you find something, like I slept for 10 hours one day, haven't had 10 hours of sleep in 7 years. I was not sick when I slept for 10 hours. However, I did think it was a different fucking decade. But when I got that much sleep, I woke up and I was like, wow. I mean, I went to bed at like 9:30 on a Friday night and woke up at, well, no, it had to have been a Saturday night because, yeah, it was a Saturday night because I would have missed the podcast. And I woke up at like 11 the next morning. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened to me?
Where was I?
So, but that's the whole thing, is there is so much activity going on in a creative person's brain. We are just as bad with our creativity on internalizing things and reading way too much into what's going on with other people than we are with actually having the conversations to figure out what is at the bottom of the conversation. I said something very stupid to my daughter the other day when she was talking about an argument she was having with a friend. I said, put down your fucking phone and call her. Now I said it that way because she's sitting there texting her, they're Snapchatting, they're doing all these social media things. I was like, call her. Have a conversation so you can hear this, so you can hear the syntaxes in their voice, so you can understand the meaning, so you can get through it all. Not so you text. I mean, what's the worst thing? I mean, Aaron and I are horrible at being in this industry, by the way, because we respond immediately to shit. If somebody throws me a text, I pick up my phone, I answer it really quick, and I put it down. I have people we deal with regularly who don't respond for 3 days, and I'm freaking out 4 days from a shoot. Like, fuck, are they even going to show up? Like, of course, man, I'll be there. I give you a heart.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that doesn't mean shit to me. I need verbal confirmation.
School. Yeah, we're old school.
But it's those types of things.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, it's because a lot of people assume that you know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they mean by what they say, and you don't. But people, I think, in general, do assume that you know, or you should know.
They do.
So there's less, and especially nowadays, there's less conversation because, well, less personal conversation, less face-to-face conversation, less voice-to-voice conversation. It's always texting and over the, it's always distant. It's distant.
It's an interesting point you raise, and I'm going to tie it in. I want to run it tandem with the creativity or the work that we do in film on set. This is another phenomenon that I've observed, and once again, it's probably just my own projection, but I feel that some artists, the ones that are really capable and do the work and immerse themselves in character development, are more honest in terms of their identity as they perceive it to be, whether it's the character they're portraying or not, in terms of them channeling the writer's subtext effectively and the emotional frequency of that sometimes feels more believable and moving to me than what they're like when we say cut. Because the other personality, I guess, that is darned for social approval or the mechanisms of AI that speaks the groupthink and the buzzwords like seriously, awesome, all these words that to me are limited in their scope because there's so many other adjectives and ways to describe things that are being ignored these days. And there's these couple of words that have been chosen in a way of looking at things that I'm not saying is wrong. You mentioned the old school in your conversation a few moments ago, and I understand the old school quite well. I grew up in it. And this is where there's a huge gap, I guess they would call it generation gap for me in terms of me understanding how and why of the way that people communicate these days. And so what I've had to learn to do out of necessity, as I wouldn't say get with the program because I don't believe in the program. I would say that I have to respect it and honor that not everyone is going to communicate in the way that makes sense to me or want to talk on the phone and all the things that you mentioned, Chuck, about just get on the phone and call her and talk to her so you can get a sense of her psychic field or emotional state of being, and you guys can have a human experience rather than let the AI do it for you. The difficulty is that not everybody is willing to adhere to that way of that perception. And so I, rather than set myself up with an expectation to be disappointed, I don't create the expectation anymore. I've accepted that the world has changed in the sense that there's a lot of human beings giving attention to a way or a practice of communicating that doesn't always make sense to me, but I've had to learn to make sense of it so that I can function in it. It doesn't mean I have to believe in it.
Right. Well,
I totally agree.
And then I think our kids have pulled us into that world. Our kids have helped us get there,
Yeah.
or accept it anyways. I understand what you're saying about the words. There's so many words that, okay, I've read the thesaurus. I admit it. I've read the whole thing back to front. I love it because I'm a writer. So I know how many words means the same thing, or what different great words that are out there to use to describe things and say things. And yeah, it is frustrating when someone's like, OMG. You're like, oh.
Yeah, it's
Stop. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. There's so many great words. But we don't communicate the same anymore. It's different.
No, because back in the 70s and 80s, it was way different. You could say things all the time, and it's fun when I go back and I'm showing the kids like movies from back then, and they're like, "Oh my God, he said faggot," and I'm like, "Yeah, but we used to say that all the time. You were fag, you know? I mean, we'd say stuff like that all the time, and it never meant anything other than you were being silly, you know. But nowadays, that shit's changed." And it's just not the words; it's the demeanor. There is a different context to everything that you have to abide by. And you're right, Robert. It's about just respecting how times change.
Yeah.
You know, and we are just like on the tail end of it now, and we're like, okay, well, they're leading the race now, so we just follow, and we do what they do. But deep down, I'm like, fuck, it's brutal. Are they going to be all right, bro? You know, are they going to be okay?
But don't let them just run off with the baton.
I don't.
We still gotta guide them.
No, my kids, especially, no. I make sure to let them know what's up. Like back then, this is how we talk. And our generation, think about the generation before us. They didn't fuck around. It's different.
It's because they couldn't.
No.
They grew up in the Depression.
I think that in entertainment, I feel that the method of storytelling reflects that as well.
It does.
It really does, dude.
I think it does.
And it's I'm okay with it, but I know what you mean.
Well, it's also become more challenging too, if you think about
Yes.
it, because it's hard to tell a story that hasn't been told, or in some similar way been told.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's different in that aspect too, where you got to kind of think about they're all, storytelling is different in a lot of ways, but that's part of it, is people have to continuously try to come up with creative ideas that haven't been done before. It's hard anymore.
It's true.
It's really hard.
But it's how you tell them too. You know what
It
I mean?
is,
That's
is.
the hard part for me. I check myself when I'm writing sometimes, and I'm like halting my creativity because the way I speak and the way I talk, I'm always back there. I'm always back in the 80s. So there's things I write sometimes I'm like, well, fuck, that's not going to resonate with a wider audience if I write that.
I'm sorry, did you say wider or whiter?
Wider.
Wider.
You know, I can't say that word in this context. That's why some filmmakers, I can, but I'm going to limit it. But, you know, for some filmmakers it work. Like Quentin Tarantino gets away with it all the time. He writes what he wants to fucking write, right?
Right.
And it's great. It's absolutely great. And it has resonated. But when you're just starting out and you're trying to get these movies that make money so that you can do this for a living, it's kind of like, what do? Do you take a chance and do you write raw, or do you sugarcoat it so you can hopefully catch a wider audience?
I
don't
think that
know.
you should
I don't
always
know.
be yourself creatively.
I think so
creatively.
too. I think so too.
I don't think you should ever be anything else but
No.
yourself when it comes to creative stuff, because that's where
Well,
your gift is.
Yeah, can I speak to that?
Please do.
Please
yes,
do, Robert.
yes.
Yes.
Because I understand what you're saying, and I've often considered the risks that one might have to take if they wanted to tell what they feel is an honest story.
Mm-hmm.
Not the right story, not the truth, maybe just a particular truth about one person's ideas on a subject, or maybe a subject that hasn't been told to its fuller capacity or has been kind of whitewashed because of political agenda. Right. And so then the concern is, how do we write stories these days that are original and not offend people? That's the part I would add.
That's it.
Maybe part of the difficulty and the stumbling blocks that you may or may not be facing is because you recognize on some level that you have to be careful what you write. As you said, I want to reach the 80% or the 70%. Mm-hmm. In order to do that, I have to stick to certain formulas that resonate with the marketplace, so distribution and the money people go, wow, you nailed it, and here's your reward, here's the big paycheck, etc. Now, if that's something that's utilized to retrieve that revenue stream to make independent films that go in a completely different direction, that become heretic to that creation, which is just simply you figuring out how to get money from the bank and rob a bank without them knowing it, by creating some propaganda piece for the 70-80% of people that want to watch whatever they're watching. Mm-hmm. Then you make films with that money that speak to a truth that feeds your soul, and maybe the 20 to 30% of the people that will understand that type of storytelling will watch your film and talk about it. And that's, I think, the realm that I live in, because I've seen no evidence in the commercial storytelling, at least from my experience.
Other than
the Charlie Manson cage that they put me in for 35 years, that there's any opportunity for me to demonstrate the full range of my creative capability. They have imprisoned me for a very long time. Yeah. And so I saw an opportunity with this film to emancipate the creative self, not me, not the ego. It's not some next level stuff. It's not a vanity fair. It's not to make any money. I've lost quite a bit of money making this movie. I threw my whole life savings at this movie and lost my apartment doing this. It was simply that I needed to free the creative aspect of self and adhere to the responsibility that my teachers that taught me years ago instilled in me. And all the people that were coming up to me in the recent years saying to me, Robert, you have some knowledge, you have a talent. When are you going to start creating your own thing? When are you going to do your own thing and stop letting them construct this persona about you when they don't have a clue who you really are?
Yeah. You know, that's an interesting point.
Is that getting, do you get typecast?
Or they've made a decision about it. I wouldn't say it's typecast. That word to me does not communicate the complexities of the minds that can't see past a certain type of programming that's been ingrained in them by other people for decades. It's like saying, why did they typecast black people in the 1940s and turn them into homunculus and make them talking idiots, like make them basically not even human? Right. It's not. It goes beyond typecasting. It's a very personal matter, because I dare say, because I've been in the inner realms. I haven't just been on the outer circle. I've been invited into that circle of thought and listen to them speak. Mm-hmm. So when people say, hey man, don't take it personal, I say, no.
Fuck you.
It's very personal.
Yeah, I know, I'm with you.
The people that are making decisions and writing the stories may claim, no. We're just adhering to the audiences that want this. And some of that is true, because we're seeing social phenomena that wasn't occurring 40 years ago. There weren't young men and women ornamenting themselves with tattoos and on the cover of magazines when I was in my late 20s. I was having rocks thrown at me when I would go to auditions, and casting directors tell me, excuse me, the messenger entrance is around back.
You're like, I'm an actor, motherfucker.
I'm not here to audition. I'm not here to deliver a package. I'm here to audition. So there have been some extraordinary changes, which are to me very positive. And I can see how the corporation utilizes that to make money and sell back to the people their own evolution as they explore various methods of expression, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But when it becomes a dictator philosophy that starts to go deeper than just the skin into culturalisms, religious themes, or fundamentalisms that are hidden in the subtext of the writing to apologize for something, now you're starting to use entertainment as a way to manipulate the masses.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
That's cult shit. That's bullshit.
I see what you're saying.
And that's what I feel is happening now.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Everything's woke.
Well, yeah,
And
and
so-
they're trying to plant
That's
shit.
that
yeah.
Josie and the Pussycats.
So this is why I decided that I wanted to integrate in the story of American Trash, not just this idea of it being an environmental story. What's your story? What's your movie about? It's about pollution. Okay. What else? It's about love. It's a love story. Really, yeah. It's also about loss. It's a drama that deals with interpersonal relationship dynamics that are placed in extraordinary circumstances that have to overcome challenging events that are life-threatening. It also involved the socio-economical collapse of Los Angeles, and it also involves a young girl who is kind of stuck, or not stuck, who has chosen to live in a different frequency, like the last flower child, like someone who is living in the 21st century, but that has the spirit of a young woman dancing around at Woodstock with that belief system, and does not understand why the world is the way it is, and finds herself listening to a man who speaks about environmental cause with such insight, such conviction, such passion. And then what we come away with, my reveal is, which is my controversial element of the film, that person just happens to be Charles Manson. And people go, oh, as soon as you say Charles Manson, everybody gets quiet, because the mind immediately goes to helter-skelter. Because we've been conditioned for the last 30 years or so, for 50 years it's been now since that case, to believe there's a social agreement, to believe the narrative that Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecuting attorney, and his book Helter Skelter as the Bible for the events that occurred that night in 1969 in August. Not everybody believes that that's how things went down. Now, I'm not saying that bad things didn't happen and they were all good people, and I'm trying to whitewash anything. I'm simply saying that my feeling is, based on the research that I've done, is that the American people, just like with Kennedy's assassination, Bob Kennedy's assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, Malcolm X's assassination, is that the American people were not given the full truth. They were lied to. Just like when Nixon opened up free trade to China, when the Vietnam War was happening and all the young people knew that the fix was in, something was very wrong about this war. So the protest, when Bobby Seale stood up and said, yo, black people, if you're not grabbing a gun and carrying a bag of wheat, you're lagging. When Timothy Leary was, basically preaching the gospel of it, tune in and drop out and take acid, and Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin were up there holding their M16s saying, rise up, kids, raise up and kill. These were all the heretics of that time that challenged the conventional belief. And so my feeling is that they needed someone to pin it on in the end, so that when the revolution that seemed to be coming about to try to overthrow the government, either in a peaceful way or not so peaceful way, when those events occurred at Cielo Drive that night, it was a perfect scapegoat scenario for the conservatives that hated the hippie movement, because they knew that it would expose the lie of capitalism, imperialism at that time. And so for something to happen in a negative, from the photo negative perception, and this man who seemed to look like a hippie, to designate a demon and to bring it to an end would serve their cause. And so it made a lot of sense to seemingly end the 60s in the midst of this tragic event The problem, though, is people forget that there were circumstances like Altamont, where the Hells Angels killed that black guy, and there was so many other things that happened that involved violence at the university, where those young people were shot by the National Guard who were protesting against the Vietnam War. There were all these other events that show the collapsing of the dream. If you go to Haight-Ashbury and the genesis of it, it was it was in a state of nirvana for a while. There was a sense of community and people helping one another, but it started to deteriorate and become a haven for drug-addicted hustlers, and it started to become violent. So it saw its rise and fall, just like everything else. And to say that one man in particular was responsible for the collapse of that, I think, is ridiculous. So I'm not saying that Charles Manson is a hero. I'm not saying he was a good guy. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm simply saying that in my story, I explore the possibility that there were some things that he said, independent of the murders, that to some people make sense in terms of the philosophy.
He was actually brilliant. He was brilliant.
I actually know exactly what you mean.
I know what you mean, too.
Yeah, because I've been infatuated with Manson for a long time, and there's something that resonates about the guy. There's a part of him that I'm like, dude, he's fucking badass. And then there's another part of me that's like, God, he makes kind of sense. He's really fucking saying something here. And I can't just dismiss it so simply by listening to, because he was this cult leader and he had all these people do what he wanted to do. I'm like, I felt the same way with all the other stuff politically recently that went down. It's like, fuck. But I hear you. I do.
I only brought I know I went on this monologue with all this history, but the reason I wanted to explain it that way is so that you would understand. I would speak to your point about playing to the masses or playing to an audience that may have the capacity to swim in deeper oceans, rather than those who don't have the attention span nor the knowledge or the concern for history or challenging authority in the way they view entertainment.
So are you saying that maybe people could see or feel more than what we assume they can?
With respect, I don't think that's what I'm going after or what I'm saying. I think that I just honestly needed to communicate a particular point of view. I'm not saying my point of view is right. I'm not saying that it's going to make sense to a lot of people. It may offend a lot of people. It may not. I don't know. I simply know that I don't believe what Vincent Bugliosi wrote in Helter Skelter. I don't believe that he orchestrated that. I think what happened was, and people know the case and done the research, that Roman Polanski, when he was away in Europe, left Sharon Tate, who was, I think, in her 8 months pregnant. Yeah. He left her with Wojtek Rakowski and Jay Sebring. And Wojtek Rakowski, in an interview that Roman Polanski gave, admittedly talks about how he was concerned about his friend hanging out with what he considered unsavory types. And he also talked about how he would try to get Sharon to do acid with him and have experiments. And he was kind of this eccentric guy who was very famous and equivalent to, I guess, in terms of his relevance in Hollywood at the time, to someone like Steven Spielberg. Yeah. But he was also eccentric, and some would say had quite a few vices up his sleeve that he lived behind the closed doors of his, estate. And that's his business. If he had orgies and they were doing drugs in the 60s, it was standard practice and, uniform of the day, so to speak, because that's what everyone was doing. So it wasn't uncommon for people to go to Cielo Drive and buy drugs or do drugs, have sex, and be videotaped. The difficulty is that when you don't tell the other side of the story, which is that people think that Tex Watson, Linda Kasabian, Charlie Manson, a lot of these people did not know the people in that house. I'm telling you that, in my opinion, based on the research I've done, is that was a very incestuous community back in the 60s. There was a place called the Corral in Topanga Canyon where Buffalo Springfield would play, the Beach Boys would play. And there was a lot of mingling going on amongst artists in that time, and a lot of parties where people would meet people. And so it wasn't uncommon that there was this kind of world, and Tarantino kind of touches on it a little bit, but he got to play it safe because he didn't want to get in trouble with the power structure and the mafia in the 60s that was very prevalent, that worked hand in hand with the studios, because you have to remember in the late 60s was probably one of the most corrupt times in Hollywood history. Organized crime was basically laundering money through the Hollywood system, and Hollywood was, there was just a lot of forms of business that was being done that by today's standards may not be considered respectful. Okay, so if you consider that prosecuting attorney was trying to become Attorney State General, Vincent Bugliosi, who wrote Helter Skelter, he had an agenda. When you consider that Roman Polanski's name and his prestige and all the things that were going on in that house had to be protected by the studio, and the studio was in bed with the mafia, and all these people were working in collusion together to protect the name. And this poor woman, Sharon Tate, who was just an innocent bystander, caught in a crossfire of drug dealers. Tex Watson was a drug dealer long before he met Charles Manson. Linda Kasabian was a drug dealer before she met Manson. It went on. The public record, if you look this up, you will find after she turned state's evidence for Vincent Bugliosi and gained, so they could gain the conviction of the so-called family, she was let go, given immunity. She was the only one let go. And then if you look in the public record, you can see that after that, she has been arrested multiple times for drug dealing. And her kids even have carried on this nefarious practice of being criminals. This had nothing to do with Charlie Manson. He had only known her 2 weeks. She'd only been at the ranch for a couple of weeks. So my point is I don't believe that Manson was a good guy. He admits it. I'm not. He says, I'm an outlaw. But I also don't believe that he had the supernatural power through LSD and spells to convince these people to go and do what they did. I don't think it had anything to do with the Terry Milcher deal, with the record deal, because Terry Milcher was ready to sign him. The only reason, from the research I've done, is not because Manson was some maladjusted or let me reframe it, was some incompetent musician. It was because he shot this guy named Bernard Crowe, Lots of Papa, who was a very well-known drug dealer in Hollywood, because Tex Watson left his girlfriend with this drug dealer as collateral and never came back. This guy, Lots of Papa, called the ranch, the Spawn Ranch, and said, listen, I want to speak to Charles. And there were two Charleses at the ranch. There was Charles Watson and Charles Manson. Charles Manson answered the phone. And this guy said, listen, if you don't bring me my drugs and my money back, I'm going to kill this girl. So they went back to the house. He took a friend. Manson took this friend of his who was a former Vietnam vet. And they went over there and they bargained to try to get the girl back. And they got into an argument, and Manson shot Lots of Papa. He pulled out a gun and he shot him. He admits this. He thought he killed him. He didn't. When Terry Milcher found out that he shot that guy, poof, the record deal just went away. And it made sense, who would want to sign some guy who was a loose cannon like that. I get it. But what I feel is really upsetting is that people are so quick to digest the narrative and not consider there's a whole other side to the story. I'm not saying that I'm trying to glorify Charles Manson. I'm not trying to glorify anything. If we're going to look at truth, let's look at the entire truth of what happened. And I dare say to this day, because people in powerful positions wanted to build names for themselves and sell Helter Skelter to the public, and the idea of this evil hippie guy who ended the 60s was good business.
I agree.
But I don't know if it was necessarily truth, man.
Right,
the total
exactly.
truth.
Exactly.
Well, and that speaks to their creative mind, all that you said, because it's thinking outside of the box. It's being able to look up your own information and find out for yourself what's true or what you believe is true.
Oh, you mean actually think?
Yeah, actually think for yourself.
Yeah, think for yourself.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to offend anybody, but not everyone does. They just follow the rest of other people, or they listen to what's being told them on the news or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not always the truth. You have to be able to think for yourself. I think that that's important.
Well, society doesn't have time to ingest details like that because they're too busy watching TikTok. You know what I mean?
Dude, there's new reels out.
So
That's it.
you get it, Aaron, don't you? You really get it.
I do.
Man. You're totally there. You're there, man. Like,
I have been.
You really are there.
Yes,
you're
sir.
there.
Yep.
So
I get
You're
it.
like you're awake in the dream, man. You must suffer a great deal at times. Okay?
I
know
I don't
to be
take.
awake hurts. It's like the movie They Live. When you put the glasses on, you see all
what a perfect reference.
and you get a headache.
Yes.
Oh, I got to take the glasses
Yes,
off, man.
yes.
It's too much.
Yeah, and then I feel like that.
Too
When
much.
and then when I see him, I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum.
Yeah.
All
I just want to say, I want to be ignorantly blissful for the rest of my life and eat Twinkies and watch ridiculous shows and just get bigger and bigger and bigger until one day I explode. Hallelujah.
Beautiful. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
It's funny. There's something that Aaron and I both do when we hear an idea for something. We both look at our arms. If we have goosebumps, we know it's a good idea.
Yes.
But when I hear things and things that are coming out, whether it be news stories or something that's going on, one of the things I always do is I lift up my hand and I look and see if it's shaking or if it's still. Because if my hand starts shaking, it's like a bullshit barometer, or if it's something that's emotionally getting to me.
Okay.
So it's one of those two things. So then I delved a little deeper into what it is that I'm hearing. So I stopped watching the news 2.5 years ago, and my life has become more blissful because of it. Now, I'm not uneducated on what's going on around me, but I will, if people are talking about something, I will do research in my own manner to find answers to things. I'm not going to sit there and go off of whatever they said on Cairo News at 11.
You don't watch Fox News, bro?
I was having a conversation with my dad. Mom, if you're listening to the show, which I know you're going to, you can tell him if you want. But I was talking to my dad today. My dad is retired. My dad spends 6 hours a day watching different news programs. Mm-hmm. The same news programs every day. And then he stops and he reads the paper. And I read the paper online because obviously I can't afford to buy a newspaper anymore because that's just expensive. So he just reads the newspaper online. Sure. And then he goes back to watching MSN, or he goes back to watching this, or he goes back to watching that. I'm like, and then he goes and plays 3 hours on his games downstairs because he's retired. He can play video games.
He can do whatever he wants.
But still, he says it's like 6 hours of watching the news. And I'm like,
That's
but you watch the same news programs every day. Flip the channel. Watch something different.
Well, no, but that's
and
how,
tune into
that's
Around
how
the Reel.
people. That's how people do it.
That's
though.
how they ingest it.
They fit their agenda with what they choose to watch. Like they look for stuff that fits what they believe.
I force myself to turn on Fox News for that reason and that reason alone. I do. And I watch it and I'm like, what the fuck am I watching right now? But I'll watch it as long as I can to try to ingest it. And then I'll put on a movie like Prey or Predator or something.
Something where somebody kills something.
Yeah, something fun. But I try. But it's, the narrative gets twisted, brother. I couldn't agree more. And people...
I think the root cause of what I was communicating had a lot to do with what you had said originally, Aaron, which is making product for either mainstream consumption or truly independent cinema that wants to break free of the yoke of the formula that has enslaved people to become robotic in the way they're entertained. So the audience's ability to comprehend good writing and good product is challenged. Woody Allen said, I think in Annie Hall, something about the audiences are systematically having their standards lowered over the years, right? Yeah. And so I'm worried that, I would say, at times I've been worried about this and concerned. And that's why I feel like we have the responsibility to, if there's money and opportunity, we can take money from the corporation for a job's sake, right? Mm-hmm. Use that money to tell a story, maybe for the 20 or 30% of people that need to be healed because they can no longer listen to the news. They can no longer look at the blight of society and allow that to infect their consciousness. They want to be entertained with stories of humanity that are hopeful, inspiring, insightful, and entertaining, but not maybe too preachy. Yeah. And I still believe in independent cinema. I just haven't seen much evidence in the corporation really does that. They haven't done it with me. So one would say, well, Robert, it's only because you have not had the opportunities, unfortunately, to participate in stories that are profound. I'm not saying that the corporation doesn't put out good product every now and then. They put out superb movies every now and then. Right. I'm not making a blanket statement that everything that comes through that channel of fiber optics of theater is bad. I'm just saying, I find myself sifting through categories and libraries of movie catalogs to find movies that will help me deal with stuff. And I don't find the commercial entertainment doing that. It just makes me angry. I
Yeah.
feel like it's offensive, like the news. I
Yeah.
can't watch it, man. It does something to
It's hard.
my frequency that makes me feel like I'm either being insulted, having to listen to some insane evangelist talk about God. I'm like, for the first few minutes, it's kind of fun, but after a while, then I feel
That's
like
how I feel.
Malcolm McDowell in Clockwork Orange, and I'm strapped to the damn chair being tortured by what people conceive as, standard, entertainment.
Yeah.
And to me, it's torture, man.
I feel you. I guess, where we're at is that's the tricky part, and other indie filmmakers could possibly understand this. It's like when you're starting out, like we've been doing this for a few years now, out in the open, right? We got our first film out in 2018. We've been making movies for 20 years though, but our first initial chance to go out and say, okay, let's see what we can do. See if we can start creating material and projects and do stuff that might resonate and make us some money. And so we can gradually get out of those day jobs and make, a living making film. Okay. So that's the trick, right? Yeah. I love everything you're saying about being an independent filmmaker and doing stories that you're not going to see by the studios. Totally for that. But when you're in this indie world and you haven't made it yet, what do you do? Like,
Stay true to yourself. That's what you do.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Do you bite the bullet and do something that might be commercial and you
If you
make
wanna
it and
be
then
a
you make the money
sellout.
and then you make the money and then you can go, I'm going to make whatever the fuck I want now, because we're never going to be working for studios in Hollywood. We've already all decided that we are going to be indie filmmakers and we're going to make this production company and join together and make everybody around us and bring them up with us, right?
We're gonna fuck it up like George Lucas. We're
Fuck
gonna
yeah.
we're gonna end up making our own studio.
do our own shit. Yeah, do our own shit. But at the same time, we struggle. Like financially,
struggle.
you got to make money, right? So what do? And that's the trick. I don't want to
Well, I know-
sacrifice the art, and I don't want to sacrifice my voice. But at the same time, can I do it in this project and the first one and the second one to build, and then be like, all right, fuck you guys, I'm ready to go. I can do what I want to do now. You hear them? You hear me, Robert?
Yeah, can I speak to Samantha? I can't see her.
I'm right here.
She had to
Sorry.
fetch the
She
dog.
got her
My
dog.
The dog ran to the stairs and barked. There's nobody upstairs, mind you, where
Yes,
we're at.
there is.
They're
There's
here
some.
now.
Oh, okay.
They're
'Cause there's
coming
the dog
home,
runs
the
the
kids
stairs
are
and
coming.
barks, and she goes to check the dog. Like men don't get up, so we're very,
Studios in her house. But anyway,
I wanted to speak to something she said, so I'll wait
Yes, I
till
can
I
hear
see
you.
her.
She has her headphones
he
on.
wants to
so
see you,
she's
Sam.
Sticking
Okay,
her
I'm
face
coming
back
in.
up.
It's
coming
Well,
in.
it's
Sorry.
okay. I don't have to see you.
No, I'm,
there she
I'm
is,
here.
My eyesight is so bad I can barely
I'm
see.
here.
You're good, brother.
I'm here.
I hope that you can at least, and I don't mean this in a condescending way at all. I'm just being honest with you. I hope that you can forgive me for selling out, because what I come away with after all these years, and the thing that makes it so absurd is there's a lot of people I find that this the cult fan base that I have that really appreciate the work I've done over the years, and I'm really grateful that they feel that way, and I wish I could celebrate with them. But it's difficult for me because, and I'll tell you, I don't normally watch the movies I'm in. Lately I have been, because things have been changing and I've been allowed to do things now
You
that
wanna do.
was not allowed to do in the past. I'm not saying everything. I mean, there's some series I've done that the writing was superb and the character arc was quite dynamic, and I've been praised for some of these shows, and I understand and I can see why. But that hasn't always been the case. So I hope that you can forgive that there were times I've done movies that I'm not proud of, that I did it because I needed the money. I looked at the material and I thought to myself, this is pornography. And yet everyone that's looking at it's going, no, it's not. This is the greatest thing. This is the latest, greatest thing. It's going to be on this network. You're going to work with this guy. And all these eyeballs are going to be on it. I go, yeah, but it's still pornography. No, it's not, Robert. You're reading too much into this. So I went and did it because I, for many, many years, believed the counsel of agents and managers to a fault, where it almost ruined my career. So it wasn't like substance abuse. Maybe definitely the tattoos slowed me down in terms of being able to move in a progressive fashion creatively, because Hollywood and the people I dealt with said to me, look, we love you. We think you're great, but we don't like this. We can't work with that. And so I lost a lot of jobs. And my point being is that it wasn't substance abuse or some kind of controversy. I think that had me pull over to the side of the road, so to speak, and have to reevaluate. And in that reevaluation, what I came away with is I had to take jobs and allow them to propagate or substantiate an ideology they had that they thought I had about myself, which was that I am bad, or that I'm a social pariah, I'm a deviant, all these things. And so I would sell out to the belief that they were projecting onto me, to the point where I started to believe it.
I got you.
And that's where it started to get confusing in my personal life, because I couldn't tell the difference between what I thought myself to be as a spirit, a creative spirit, and how they were writing it. And so I started to get very confused about reality and identity. And so I just kept taking the jobs, doing the work, taking the money, and I observed people getting excited about what the character was doing, right? Okay, so all these years later, I'm looking at this, and this guy had an interview recently, and the guy said to me, so what's it like now, Robert, for you to be at a stage of your career where, like, you're one of the selling points of a movie on a DVD, on one sheet, or on one of these download platforms? And I wanted to tell him the truth, but I didn't. And I'm going to tell you that I told him a truth, but I didn't tell him the truth. The complete truth is, it's kind of like you have this crush on a person for many, many years, and you're head over heels for them, and you keep trying to get their attention and show them who you are, so that they will connect with you, because the biggest dream you have is to feel the embrace and the approval of that person, love of that person, right? And they just keep ignoring you, dismissing you, mocking you even. And then one day, for whatever reason, years later, they turn around and now they have a crush on you. But you don't feel the same way anymore. You look at them, maybe you'll go on a date with them, maybe you'll even be intimate with them, but you don't see them the same way anymore. You can look at them, remember, have the memory of what you felt. In the sense, you're lying, or maybe I'm lying, when I say, yeah, it feels good, but I don't feel anything. I don't feel bad. I don't feel good. I'm grateful that I can work. But that euphoria that I used to experience in the 90s, when I'd go on an audition and get the job, and the agent said, hey, guess who you booked the job, that kind of like crack high, doesn't happen anymore. Right. And I'm glad it doesn't happen anymore, so that I can see what I perceive to be reality, which is this person or this entity I've had the crush on, as it really is, and not give it more power than it really has, and diminish this idea of self, which is creative spirit. It's not maybe some would say it is my fault. I had producers and casting, well, it's your fault, Robert. You tattooed yourself, man. You have incredible talent. You did yourself a terrible injustice with that. And now you're only going to be perceived this way. We're sorry. And then years later, you have people writing roles with you in mind that incorporate the ink, that don't have a problem, because the director, Bruce, I just worked with, is covered in ink. He says, man, I've been a fan of yours, and I used to be an MMA fighter. You have a whole new generation of people that don't see it that way at all.
Not at all. I'd cast you in a heartbeat, no problem. Seriously.
And so you're being healed slowly in increments by each person that embraces you and say, yo, man, I love you. And they're tatted down too. So it's like that girl coming back in different forms, that person you had the crush on, saying, I'm so sorry that I didn't see what was right in front of me. Yeah. And you having the challenge, not necessarily, maybe to forgive and to reconsider that she won't hurt you again. Mm-hmm. But did she hurt you? Or just was not capable of seeing what was there? You got to be careful with this stuff, or you end up in the realm of bitterness. Yeah. And I've ended up in that realm.
Yeah.
So a lot of us have.
Yeah.
And I don't want to stay there, man. I want to transcend it. So I'm just telling you the truth. That's how I feel about the position I'm in right now. I'm not too certain about it, what it implies, because I know physically this body is going to drop one day, and I'm not going to be immortalized. There's no such thing. eventually, I believe, this is just my personal belief, that all the memory banks of fiber optics that hold the world's entertainment eventually will have a disintegration event in a million years from now. I don't know if any of this stuff is even going to exist. So there is this idea that you will be immortalized in film, I think is very misleading and dangerous, because it induces a belief system to make one to take it perverts the creative impulse and turns it into a form of idolatry. Mm-hmm. And none of the teachers taught that. The real teachers I work, they said, don't make self-portraits. No self-portraits. Portray the character, do justice to the art form, and that's it. And don't get too attached to the results of your work. This idea, though, that you will become a god or a goddess is a very powerful aphrodisiac for people who feel lost or not loved by parents or anybody. And one day someone says, you're anointed. And all these people suddenly love you. But do they love you? Right. Or do they love what that represents?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Genuine
belief. Because you know the truth. You know that they don't even, how can you love me? You don't even know me.
You don't know me, motherfucker.
That's that genuine of people that you miss out on when
that's what you were talking about earlier.
That's what I was talking about.
Yep, that's exactly
earlier.
It.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I've lived a life of living in the shadows for my years of doing security, from being in construction, and I've never been in front of everybody's face and all that kind of stuff. It's been the whole point of what I've done. The one thing I've always thought of is the fact that, no matter what happens to me, when I finally go, I could just see a handful of people from the security days, a handful of people from the construction days, a handful of people from the film industry that have gotten to know me in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I would love to see what that conversation looks like for all the people who've known me at the three major different stages of my life, from the construction to security to filmmaking. And just because that's it, because I don't anticipate there's not going to be hundreds of thousands of people. There's not going to be 1,000 people. There probably won't be 100 people, but there are going to be a handful of people from different parts of my life that I matter to that will care. And those are the only people I'm trying to reach.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, you can have all the money in the world. You can't take it with you. That's
true.
And that's why I have no respect
my
for
grandfather
money.
proved that wrong. We buried him with a shit ton of money.
Okay, well, whatever. I mean, you...
Grandma dug him up 3 days later. It's a
talk about. Funny, man. You guys are really funny.
You know what, Robert? What I love about you is your honesty. It's fucking dope, man. It really is.
This is nowhere near the conversation that we're going to have today.
No. This is good stuff because it just reminds me.
It's
it
real.
reminds me of how.
I'm sorry if I went off topic,
brother.
No, you're good.
God, fuck no. We
don't have a
we
topic.
need to stop anticipating conversations because they're always better than we think.
Yeah, I absolutely love the fact that you are doing what you're doing now. Like we watched your short film, like all of us did. The one that Riviera. Yeah.
Oh,
I was fucking crying while you're trying to load
we're
Zoom.
all crying.
Yeah, I mean that's just
my co-star in that Javo. He was great in that.
Tremendous,
yes.
Tremendous. The film is tremendous,
Right.
dude. That not many short films kick you in the balls like that one does.
Yeah.
That one hit me, dude. It's fucking good, and it's like wow, Yeah, and you're right. If you're taking those gigs back in the day, and you're doing what you're doing, and you gotta pay your bills, man. You gotta do what you do, and you gotta. You don't like the word typecast, but you're gonna pay the punk or whatever you're gonna get. But you look at Robert and you see his ability. Like in that film, it's fucking glorious, right? You transitioning and doing indie films now and sticking to your art and sticking to your voice and your vision is beautiful.
It is. Well,
it really is, man.
We heard
it's
it from
great.
another big guest that we had on
Yeah,
our show.
Alex Proyas. Alex Proyas
He
did the
feels
same
the
thing.
same way.
He fucking can't stand Hollywood, dude. Alex Proyas, director of the fucking Crow, man. You know what I
And
mean?
Fuck you, I'm going back to Australia.
That motherfucker dipped. He dipped.
He's not
and
about
he's like,
it.
no, he's doing his own thing, and it's
That says a lot, man.
you
It
know
does.
What
It does.
You know what I mean, dude? So you ain't alone, but dude, you are a badass. I mean,
Yeah.
you really are the epitome of what a real person is trying to make movies and follow your art form and your love for film and stories and all that stuff.
I'm sorry, but
And
money
keep it
can't
real.
buy that. Money cannot
keep
buy
it
that.
fucking real. It's gangster as fuck, and I love you, man.
Yeah.
I really
It's
do,
amazing.
dude.
It's amazing.
Brother, seriously, it's fucking amazing.
Thank you. Glad you feel that way.
Absolutely. And you need to just remember that even though all those movies that you did that you weren't happy about back in the day, people like me appreciated you. I did. I saw you, man.
Absolutely.
I fucking saw you, dude. And I'm like, dude, he's a badass. And every time I saw your face in a movie, I'm like, dude, that is that Robert guy?
That's gonna be badass.
Yeah, that's that Robert guy. Yeah, no matter what the part, every time I saw you in a film, I was like, fuck, I love it. I don't care if it was Death Race or anything else. It was great. It's great to see your face on screen. You know, and even though these people that, you know, we were talking about this, and I get what you're saying, and everybody else, we all agree that they don't know you, but they appreciated your work, man. They did. And you did a great job.
Thank you.
You kicked ass. And I remembered you all these years. And that's all I got to say about it.
Well, maybe it's, you know what, maybe it's better that they don't know me. It's just like my story, my anecdote about how I met people in the early stages of my career and they didn't live up to these unrealistic expectations that I projected onto them. How fair was that of me to project that onto them, expect them to behave in a way that I imagined? It's not their fault.
Well, it's human nature to feel that way and to learn
and
to learn that that's not realistic.
Yeah, and the time. I mean, yeah, my man had tattoos on, but you know, now it don't fucking matter. It don't matter.
Well, no, who's the other one that we know that has tattoos that's getting them removed?
Raymond Powers.
He's trying to make
and that's
it,
a local
and
actor up here in the Seattle area. He's a great actor, and
we love his tattoos.
Yeah, I'm better than him, but
no, you're not.
He's a regular on our show, and he's a good friend of ours in some of our movies and the projects we have going on. So Aaron has an in his own head competition going on with Raymond.
It's fun.
Raymond doesn't realize there's a competition going on because he just laughs at him.
It's funny though, but you know, the point is that
he's a talented guy, and he feels like he can't be himself to do what he wants to do. Because he wants to act, and he's getting his tattoos removed.
And he's so good. He's so good.
And
we never even saw the fucking tattoos, did we? I didn't notice them. No, I didn't notice them at all.
I admit, I know. I mean, he has a teardrop tattoo.
Yeah.
So that was the one
and
thing
I thought it was badass.
But the funny thing with like even his teardrop tattoo is like before he walked into an audition, cover up.
Yeah, he put cover up on it, and that's fucked up.
You know,
I think it is because it says where he's been in his past. He's had a hard life and been through a lot of stuff, and he's come up from that. He's built his life to something beautiful, and he now takes care of. He's got 5 kids. He takes care of. He's got a beautiful life. And I
making
feel like,
movies.
But I feel like he wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for that teardrop tattoo.
And that's right. And Robert's the same way.
Where you've been is important to where you are.
Fuck yeah, it is.
One of my therapists that treated me for decades said to me, the next time someone says to you, if you didn't have all those tattoos, you'd be at a much higher station or a star. You tell them, if you didn't have all these tattoos, you'd be dead. Because from the way he saw it was that it was a form of therapy for me, like, you know how people have to work through shit.
Yeah.
It was a way for me to deal with all the rage
and
bring it to the surface and get it out of me. Otherwise, I would have done other things.
Yeah,
which I did.
Other people do other things.
I just didn't get caught.
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough not to get caught.
I hear you, brother.
But things like that are they
but
mean
the tattoos were crucial in terms of this exorcism through the flesh, with the inner aspect of this idea of demon that needed to come out so that I could become free of it. And then ultimately embrace it and not be ashamed of it. Now I don't even see them. People I identify less and less with the body mind, because I'm realizing now we're all going to lose each other. Everyone you know, you're going to lose. And they're going to lose you in terms of what the physical body suggests. So in terms of entertainment, okay, I get it. People want to make a living. They're concerned about judgment. They're concerned about the entities that hire them. And if they appear a certain way, they'll lose the job. I get all that aspect of things. And if people can live with themselves in terms of the choices that they make so that they can further move down that road in terms of obligation regarding work order, that makes sense, as long as I think you don't betray your true self, because you still have to deal with that at the end of your roads. When you know, Manson used to say, I place the mirror at the ends of your roads. It's like the Dorian Gray mirror. You have to face that and ultimately transcend the mirror and go beyond it. I think the really great artists are able to do that and not watch themselves while they're doing it. They just incarnate, transcend, and channel the writing and the spirit and disposition of the character to such a degree that people are mesmerized by it. So it's almost like a spiritual kind of dynamic. It's not just a three-dimensional character. It has a fourth dimension, which is spiritual. The really good ones know how to do that without you even knowing it. That's why you come away going, well, what a performance. I'm so moved, my heart, just because of that element. And that has nothing to do with how the body appears, unless, you go to the corporation. If you go to the independent filmmaker, like Aronofsky, who made The Wrestler, when they threw Mickey Rourke off a building and said, good luck, your career's over, he resurrected Mickey because he figured out a way to create a character type with him where you could empathize with this man. Despite his shortcomings and flaws, he still loved his daughter, but could not help resist the tendencies and patterns that kept having him go round and around in this kind of world of wrestling, that he was completely devoted to that and ignored everything else. But it was an epiphany, I think, for both of these men to come away with the success of that film, because it was such an honest, brutal portrayal of a life devoted to something, regardless of the cost of his daughter. He lost his daughter. He lost everything. But what it demonstrated too is that Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler did not look like he looked in the 90s when he was the big movie star. It was a demonstration that someone as brilliant as a director like Aronofsky, who prior to that did this movie called Pi, who's relatively unknown, could exalt in a way, if you want to look at levels, and take a talent like Mickey Rourke's and place it within a proper frame with a vision and blow people's minds with that character study, man.
Yeah, you're right.
And the brutal honesty of that. And to me, that's where the magic happens, man.
You're
That
right.
is. That is.
You're right.
That is where the
I gotta
magic
give it to
happens. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Man.
So, that's where you the appearance of the face. People talk about, well, this woman doesn't look the way she did 10 years ago. This person's had plastic surgery. Whether it's tattoos, women having to deal with tyrannical men in Hollywood that cast them based on their appearance. In that sense, all casting is typecasting.
Yeah.
All casting
You're right.
is typecasting.
Yeah.
We
Because it
need
has
the
to fit the
buxom
character.
blonde. Yep. We need the geek with the glass. There's all categories in which, and now it's become a cultural phenomenon because America is apologizing for the injustices it's done to various cultures over the years in Hollywood. So it has to recreate archetypes and use different people so that it can heal the wounds of those who have felt ignored for decades. So there's another agenda at work. I'm not insinuating that the agenda means it's bad. I'm just saying there is an agenda at work.
I feel
so for a reason. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying I don't agree with it, but I see what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
If I was to go out and do an audition for a role for a 40-plus-year-old, 50-year-old black guy, I'm going to fuck him up because I'm not really that black. I just happen to be black. You know what I mean? So I could go into an audition and they'd be like, oh, you fit the role, but they're not going to, I can't play a black guy. I can't do it. I'm so not that guy.
So you're not in the next Tyler Perry movie?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not. That's what's so stupid about it. I throw them all off is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's so
most
stupid.
Audiences identify with what they see visually because it's a visual medium, and then after that they identify with culturisms, the stereotypes that they've been trained to digest. So the industry has it down to a science and how they pick. We're going to go lighter, we're going to go taller, we're going to go less ethnic, we're going to go more Aryan, we're going to go more ethnic, we're going to put two women together, we're going to not have it, we're going to go this way. They've got it down to a psychological science as they observe the social phenomena of agreement changing and shifting so that they can sell tickets.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's just something that's happening. I don't know what it ultimately means. That's just what's happening.
It's money. It's just money. It's just right. Yeah.
So you find your niche. You find a place where you can exist and be true to whatever it is that makes sense. So if you want to play to the studio's formula, you go run to the studio like I did for many years, and you embrace them. And you come away with multiple Purple Hearts because in that embrace, you've been stabbed, punched, kicked. All these things have been done to you, but you've been mesmerized by being anointed to such a degree that you don't realize that you've been in an unhealthy relationship for decades because so many people were applauding the glory of how well you died. in the Coliseum. Get it?
I do
the
get it.
concussion of the clap. What was it?
Get it?
I've heard that
I
before.
sure as shit get it.
It's
Yeah.
I fucking get
ruthless, man. It's a ruthless industry in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sense. But
yeah.
that's why I had
That's
to
deep.
go from naive and get the other skin and just took whatever they gave me, the kicks, the punches, all these things that they felt were necessary. Well, Robert, you're the one that created this idea of yourself. We're just taking it, giving you money and exploiting it, man. If you did not want to show up in that mythos, you may have considered a different way of communicating your physical body. So that was the argument.
Yeah.
And there may be some truth to that. I don't know. It all depends on who you talk to. It's
I
like
guess-
saying to someone who's African American, well, hey, man, or someone who happens to decide that they don't feel that their gender matches their spirit and they want to change that. Someone that thinking that challenged me to alter my appearance, would they say that now to someone who's a cross gender? Would they say that to someone who
They ain't
you see,
saying
Not
shit,
anymore.
dude.
very slippery slope, man.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great point.
It is a great point.
Woo.
Yeah. On that note,
Yeah. Where can you see, or where are you guys at on America Trash? Where are you in the process?
We're close to the finish line.
Badass. Okay.
Anthony has been working diligently to bring me the majority of the movie. We're in the final stages
Badass.
of filming and editorial. He's actually editing as we go. So I've been filming, he's been doing the musical score and editing. So I'm saying we're probably about 85% to 90%.
I love it. I love it.
and Anthony is a beautiful human being, and everything he touches, I believe, is gold. So
Yeah.
I do believe that.
Absolutely.
Anthony
He's a great.
Espina, of course, happens to be
amazing
our
person.
composer
Oh, he
for the Giant
composed
Pacific
my
Octopus.
movie.
And he'll be our composer for Say Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
So we are big fans of Anthony Espina.
Oh,
Yeah,
God, yeah.
I'm lucky to have him.
He
I'm
goes
lucky
to
have him.
lengths that most people will not go to
That is
make
correct.
to
Yes.
connect with your film and connect with you as a director, and he's amazing.
He even checked on me after my colonoscopy. He's a good person.
After the colonoscopy, bro?
He was like,
I didn't even do
I
that.
know.
do
How
that
was your
shit.
procedure yesterday? I'm like,
I'm not doing that.
damn.
Oh,
Why the
see,
It was
Anthony-
all right. Thanks,
Anthony is like godly.
Yeah, he's no joke.
Love that guy.
Well, Robert, it was an absolute pleasure
Yes,
hanging
it
out with
was.
you, brother.
Yes,
it really
it was.
was, man. I appreciate your honesty more than you know. I'm sure the audience is going to fucking love this.
Super cool, deep conversation.
And I think people need to really listen to what you had to say. And I'm going to listen to this show again a few times
Oh, yeah.
to pick up on some of the stuff that I may have missed. Because
You were making notes while he was talking.
yeah, but there's some deep fucking shit here. And Robert, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Your time, all your art, everything you've done, and I can't wait to see your movie, man.
I still think
really-
you're hot, so
Yeah, she does. It's okay. I try to
Wait a
embrace
second.
the
You
bold.
still
but-
think he's hot? What? Even after everything he said today,
Yeah,
you
well, I
still
mean,
think
I'm
he
just
think
want
he's
him
hot?
to
'Cause he's-
remember that he's hot.
Because he's a cool motherfucker. He's cool as shit, and he always has been.
Well, and I would be a very bad father and husband if I did not ask you a question. If you don't mind me asking you a personal question about one of your tattoos.
Well, go ahead.
Whose eyes are peering out through your abdomen? That's what my wife and daughter want to know. You have female set of eyes peering out through your abdomen. Is that somebody?
Oh, yeah, that was there was I wish I could romanticize it more. But it was just it was in the realm of fantasy. It was something that I imagined or saw. I saw it in my artist friend used to sketch stuff, and I was going through the book, and I saw the image, and I think subconsciously it reminded me of someone I used to know.
Badass.
So the image times what it reminded me of, I felt connected to. It wasn't like carbon, it wasn't a photocopy of that person, but
Sure.
there was something in the look that I felt connected to. And I thought, wow, that's beautiful, man. She's her eyes. I want, that's. So I guess it's just something I made up in my fantasy.
Badass.
Yeah,
It's a
that's good to
fantasy
know because
person.
I was always curious since they've always liked that tattoo. I didn't know if it was the actual eyes, which everybody's drawn to eyes, or if it was your fucking abs that they were drawn to. I was just trying to differentiate which one it was.
Yeah.
Both.
Basically, what he's saying, Robert, is all the women in our lives love you and they hate us. So
Right?
We
yeah.
don't hate you guys.
it's
Come
fine.
on now.
It's totally fine. It's fine. I can deal with that. It's Robert LaSardo. I'm good. It's fine.
I just feel
I like
really
his abs,
fortunate that I was able to hang out with you guys.
Oh my gosh, we feel really fortunate to hang out with you. That
Right
was
back
cool.
at you, brother.
That was super
Seriously, it was a pleasure, and I wish you all the best on everything you do from
Thank
here
you,
on
brother.
out, my man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
God bless you all and good health, and please be safe
Thank
in
you
this
so much.
right back at you.
ever-changing world.
If you ever need anything,
Absolutely.
we're family now.
Yes, sir.
You're
It's
in
around
the
the real
Around the Real
family.
family.
Around the reel, yeah.
We join together,
Um,
brother.
I may take you up on that.
You sure can.
Whichever one you're pointing at.
Oh yeah. See. Oh yeah. And Anthony Espina. Now I got to go against him. I can edit too.
I'll take you all up on it.
Do it.
I would
Please
love it.
do.
I would
That'd be amazing.
Samantha will keep you. Will keep you centered. I'll keep you grounded, and Aaron will just light the fucking fuse and watch it go.
He'll send you. Woo!
I can edit movies, motherfucker.
I know you can. movies.
I'm an editor. I love
Hey,
it.
stop trying to steal Anthony's work. You can help him with the next one.
Oh, what the heck?
It's all good.
But-
I'd love to edit Robert's movie. That'd be
That's
fucking
right.
badass. Fucking Anthony. God
But
damn it.
Anthony also knows if he ever gets stuck on something, he can give us a call.
Yeah, he sure can. He sure. I
Because
love
we
him
all
to death.
family.
I love him to
Yes.
death.
Appreciate that.
All right, guys. Chuck, you want to close this out?
Of course I do. Robert, thank you for joining us down around the reel. Thank you for taking a moment and letting us know about the last 30 plus years of being in the industry, what has done to you, for you, and what it sounds like the most to me is how much you've grown from it. And I'm very, wow. Speaking of those goosebumps, I just gave them to myself before I opened my mouth, which means I'm getting emotional. I'm very humbled by listening to our conversation today because, yeah, there's no doubt. When you were coming on our show, Aaron and I being the 80s and 90s fans, we were like, oh, one of the stars coming on the show.
That's right.
But having this conversation we had today meant more to me than the fanboy stuff that we were doing 3 days ago. So thank you for taking the time today to share your life, your stories, the stories behind some of your ink, and so much more on Around the Reel. So everybody out there, remember, think hard, because you're thinking anyway.
See everybody later.
Bye. For those of you that want to be a guest on Around the Reel, please email Sam at aroundthereel253@gmail.com.
That's aroundthereel253@gmail.com.
Not Messenger. Do not message Aaron on Messenger because then he has to send you a message that says email Sam at aroundthereel253@gmail.com.
That's aroundthereel253@gmail.com.
How come they can't just message me again?
Because nobody wants to fucking talk to you.
Can anybody reach out? That's an artist, filmmaker, actor?
If you're an artist of any kind, we want to hear from you.
But we are going to vet the crap out of you.
We don't care if you make millions of dollars in Hollywood or if you're just beginning your career in the art industry. We don't care. So everybody that wants to be on Around the Reel, yes, we want you.
That's aroundthereel253@gmail.com.